Hi, unconventional conventionists. Thank you for tuning your dial to Time Warp Radio, the Rocky Horror Picture Show Movie by Minute podcast, where with each 7 minutes, we can make you a fan. I'm Haley Mervini.
And I'm Katie Tomney.
And we are your resident criminologists on all things Rocky Horror. Today we are discussing timestamps hour 1 minute 16 second 32 to hour 1 minute 23 second 20. I don't think there's much other to say than we're ready for the floor show.
Hell yeah.
I love this scene so much.
Me too. Honestly, the floor show is probably like my favorite part of the movie.
It's probably the best part of the movie. It's like no, all of it's good. But like all of this and a floor show, it's let's do it. There is a curtain opening transition wipe, which I know we talk about the transitions all of the time, but this is a reveal to a reveal to a reveal, you know? And editing is something that, like, if an editor's doing his job well, you don't notice the transitions. Mm-hmm. Like, it's seamless. It feels like your perspective, and like if you were sitting in the room and you were turning your head and it's like the kind of motion of like blinking.
Yeah.
Like that's what an editor wants to do. But these transitions are just so otherworldly that it also kind of lends to the alien nature of them, you know? We see this grand ballroom, which we've seen before. It's a red velvet curtain with gold filigree along the bottom. And white and red striped beach chairs.
Yeah.
Lined up in rows for an audience of who, we don't know. And there's a middle aisle that's sectioned off with velvet ropes and stanchions. The two glowing green-eyed griffins are back.
They are.
But like, I don't know if it's just the perspective or if it's just me, but like this stage looks so much huger than the one Frank was on in Sweet Tea.
I agree. I definitely feel like...
Did they construct a bigger stage?
I think so. I think that this is like a completely new environment that's just like reminiscent of the previous environment.
Because that would explain why when they set this ballroom up, it's meticulously like the ballroom in Time Warp with those beach chairs added. Like, you still have Columbia's jukebox in the corner. You still have the whole weird spread of Transylvanian food on a banquet table in the back. So, like, yeah, they definitely... Because this stage is huge for them to then hold the pool behind it.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. The music, like, it's just... And, like, everyone starts... You feel it in, like, the seats of the theater. Like, ooh, something's starting.
You can feel the energy rising.
And it's also, like... I don't know, like, how would you describe the music in, like, Moulin Rouge? Like, I want to say, like, Va Va Voom Me. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's, like, it's so over the top. It's got those horns, so it's, like, really flashy, the song. And, so begins Rose Tints My World, the first in a 3-part floor show, which I think it's my personal fave of the 3 parts. Music and lyrics by Richard O'Brien, with arrangements by Richard Hartley in the key of D major. At least it starts that way. It'll do a key change after Columbia does her verse. But this song is just like total fan service.
Oh, yeah.
To every single audience member. Like, we're totally being rewarded for watching this whole strange movie. And now we're going to get to see some, like, gorgeous people striptease and burlesque. And it's guaranteed to turn someone on. Like, all of them have different bodies. Brad's like, if you're into, like, the tall, lean type, or if you're, like, into gals that are more voluptuous, you can be into Columbia, you know?
Or if you're into the muscle men, you've got Rocky, sweet, sultry eye candy. And then, of course, there's Janet, who has, like, the big curled hair and, like, those hips to die for.
And she's walking like it's a catwalk, like it's like a bedroom walk. Like, you know, like she's totally seducing you through the screen.
Absolutely.
To what level do you feel like this is like a play on the trope Perilous Play, where they've been captured by Frankenfurter and now he's like, sing and dance for me, monkeys?
I totally always have gotten that vibe where he's like kind of the puppet master and he's got them like on strings.
Okay, yes, because I also am curious to what level they are in control of their limbs, but we'll get to it. This grand stage, we're part of the audience, we get that, like, introduction. Now we get taken backstage to Frankenfurter, who it seems like he's, like, late.
Yeah. He's doing last minute
adjustments.
Yes.
Additions. And we see the back of Brad's Medusa statue form.
His punch pose.
Frank tosses a boa over his shoulders and then pushes a trolley with like a couple of gift bags. They're striped. They're red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's where the boas were coming from, but, like, you know, he's pushing a cart with stuff on it. And he also has his hair in, like, the top half is, like, scrunchied with this pink fabric, this really sheer pink fabric, and then the rest of his hair is in curlers.
Yeah, like rollers.
What time does he have to get ready? What is he doing?
He's got the whole floor show.
No, he's at the Medusa machine the whole time. Is he? Okay. We're gonna get to it. I have an idea. Anyway, he is pushing the trolley past Rocky, and then like really absentmindedly powders Rocky's face with just like a powder bag he has hanging off of his shoulder. Frank is like, there's nothing to add to them. They're already like totally dressed to the nines in these sequined corsets.
Yeah.
And garter belts with these red, they're like satin. I think mine are satin.
Mine are satin. They're like scrunched red satin, like ribbon.
Garter belts.
Yeah.
And they're in their fishnets. And Frank makes a face at Janet as he walks past her.
Like sticks his tongue out, yeah.
And he gets to Dr. Scott and he just kind of like waves his hand at him like, we'll get to you. I don't care about you right now. He turns to look at the lighting board, which if you look at that whole wall, there's like a bunch of other control panels and like switches and stuff to the left that are totally cobwebbed over. So he doesn't use that very often, but like this segment of the control panel, it looks like gets a fair amount of use.
I mean, yeah, it looks a lot more in use than the other section.
So, and then there's also a mirror with stage lights around it. So Frank must be getting ready at that mirror as everybody's getting de-Medusa'd.
In between.
Yeah. He looks at this control panel, and it has the Transylvanian sigil on it.
Yeah, the lightning bolt.
Okay, so does that mean like they've been harnessing electricity for the floor show?
Maybe.
Are they broadcasting the floor show back to Transylvania?
Yeah, it's The Bachelor.
That's totally my thought. Really, like they are talking about an audio vibratory physiomolecular device.
Yes.
And if they're recording and live streaming and broadcasting this back to a television screen of yours or mine, well, he swats at these light switches, and there's like a couple of rows of red and green lights, and then like buttons and light switches. Mm-hmm. But none of it matters because he just like hits them and they work.
I know, he just like slaps at them.
Do the thing. But Frank is also wearing a, like, it looks like shaving cream all over his face.
Yeah. It's like, it reminds me of like cold cream.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's more the texture. That's a good comparison. Because then I was also thinking like maybe a clay mask.
Hashtag self-care. You know, it's very important.
Because then, like, we haven't seen them de-Medusa'd yet, but the rest of the gang have the white face paint on. So I didn't know if this was Frank foreshadowing their own face paint that they're going to have.
Maybe.
I don't know. Dr. Scott is not included in the floor show. He's like, no, I don't want you in this part of the show. You can not. Did they put on Dr. Scott's fishnets?
See, we attempted to answer this last week. And I still feel like he probably had them on because his blanket is Medusa'd on his lap.
Yes. And he's so comically, like, his clothes have been put back on him because he was Medusa'd, nudified,
Yes.
shirtless, and then now he has the button-up shirt back on, the tie back on, and the jacket, like, thrown loosely around his shoulders. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they did. Yeah. I like thinking that Dr. Scott has been wearing fishnets all along all these years.
The whole time.
The whole time. After Frank does his smacking of the flight control panel, we cut back out to the ballroom. We see the footlights start to glow on the curtain. Mm-hmm. The music is ramping up. We're getting excited. It's like, love it. And then the curtains open to reveal the statues standing in front of silver drapes. This image, you only see them all as a statue for like a moment because then Columbia gets de-Medusa'd. Mm-hmm. But I love all of those like behind the scenes photos of them
too.
Like hanging around
They're so cute.
their own statues. It's bizarre too.
I need to know. I want photos of them getting the statues like made. Like I want to see them being like, because I think they were like casted. You know what I mean? Like I think that they
did a form.
Yeah, but I want to see how they did it.
There's got to be photos there somewhere. They're just sitting on it at Fox. They're waiting until like the 100th anniversary to be like, oh, all these years we told you there was no Rocky footage? Psych.
Give me the footage.
Give us the footage. These statues standing in front of the curtain, like, it's like when you go to a band and the opening act is in front of the bigger curtain. Like,
It's going to reveal the set for the main
yeah,
performance.
yeah. So you know already, like, this is going to be sexy and fun, but it's not even the headline act.
Yes.
Because Frank needs a curtain reveal, too. It wouldn't be the same if he just, like, walked on stage. And it wouldn't even be the same if they just opened the curtain to him just standing there behind it. Like, it's so fitting that he's so far away when the curtain opens. But he's not even there yet. We're not even there yet. He's still backstage. After we see all of the statues, we get Frank's glove coming into the scene and flipping the Medusa switch, which there are 2 of them in the castle then.
Yes.
There's one in the lab and there's one here.
So that means that this is a plan.
Right?
Like, this has been done before, I'm assuming.
Because, well, I'm curious, could they have Medusa'd them during, like, sweet tea? If, like, the Medusa machine works in the ballroom, could they have just been like...
Is one only for Medusing and one only for de-Medusing? You know what I mean?
I need Richard O'Brien to explain this science to me. I just need him to... I need to know how many times you can be and re-Medusa'd.
Maybe you have to be in that room.
You have to be in the lab.
Yeah, so, like, to be Medusa'd, you have to be in the lab, and to be de-Medusa'd, you have to be in the ballroom.
It's like a Clue thing. Only the secret passageways work in the corners of the board.
Exactly.
So Frank does his de-Medusa. We cut back to Columbia, who is wearing a purple face mask.
Yeah, so it's like a oval around her face that's all white, and then the border is purple, and it's purple eyeshadow that goes from her, like, right under her eyes to up to her eyebrows, and then her lips are red.
And I think her introducing the number is just perfect because she's
got that high energy and that
oh my
fun
gosh,
voice.
has so much energy still today, even. Like,
yes.
She just kicks this number off. She pops her boa up in the air at the same time as the, like, drum beat drops. So it really, like, punches that moment. And this is just the most fun to shadow cast, if I'm being totally honest. Like, I think I was lying when I said Toucha was my favorite. Because, like, I think Floor Show is secretly why Janet's, Brad's, Rocky's, and Columbia's join shadow casting, is because it's like, whoa.
They want to be in the fishnets.
I want to do the fishnets, yeah. I want to do the kick line. I want to do the boas. Oh my gosh.
Well, because I mean, even in, like, Perks of Being a Wallflower, they show the very beginning of the show with Riff Raff. Hi, Jordan. And they show the floor show. And that's, like, all of Rocky Horror that you get to see. It's just the very beginning and the floor show.
And it's so straight to the point. Like, you can... I just cannot more highly recommend the pause play feature on like the Apple TV watching this.
Pause.
Because you can learn the choreography, and then getting it right and having it be screen accurate just makes it, like, that better. I don't know. I love doing the screen accurate choreography.
Me too.
I just think, and Brad and Rocky do have choreography, even though the girls are more
polished.
Right.
There's still a method to the madness for the men.
I love a Brad that does the step ball change. The choreography is obviously David Tagore, and it's so cabaret. It's so like red light Amsterdam, red light district. You know, it's so like it feels fringy, but also like very accessible.
It feels like, in, I think it's Chicago, where they do the backlighting and you just have like the performers in those boxes and it's just the red backlighting and then their silhouettes and you see them moving and dancing. That's what this feels like.
Ugh, because they're so sexy.
Yes.
Columbia begins singing.
It was great when it all began. I was a regular Frankie fan. But it was over when he had the plan to start working on a muscle man.
And this camera angle is so it feels sleazy because you feel like you're sitting in the front row of a burlesque, that you're looking up at them doing their striptease. Because the camera's tilted up looking at them on stage. And poor Columbia, things have just been going continually downhill from the second she met Frank.
I know. Poor thing.
This is basically her summarizing her experiencing the break the cutie trope. You know? Like, I was having a normal life. And then look at where I am now. Poor thing.
Poor thing.
Her saying she was a regular Frankie fan. Do you think that she doesn't know that they're aliens?
You see, I still can't decide on that because it's like she spent so much time with them. She had to have seen something.
But maybe she just like thought she was high.
Or like
the whole
normalized
time.
it.
Yeah, like nobody else is, because Brad and Janet don't react to Eddie getting murdered.
Yeah.
Even though Columbia is having a reaction that they could empathize with, and they could have reacted like Columbia was. That being said, we don't get any shots of Brad and Janet reacting to Eddie, so like I really have no idea how they were taking that.
Yeah.
I don't know how they kind of forget that happens altogether. That's how distracted they are, man. But I don't think Columbia, I think she was so in love with Frank that the weird things that were like red flags,
She just wrote them off.
she was like, oh, he's quirky. Because I don't know if she also started reconsidering her loyalty to Frank. If it was when if it was when he suggested performing brain surgery on Eddie, or when he just did it. I don't know where she was like, I'm not cool with this anymore.
Yeah, because she said it was over when he had the plan to start working on a muscle man. So it's like, she might have started falling off this Frank train.
Yeah, because she also said Frank spurned her for Eddie. I think that she loves Frank more than she loves Eddie.
I think that she's infatuated with Frank.
Well, she says in Eddie's Teddy that she very nearly loved Eddie, but then she so emphatically states to Frank that she loved him, and if he didn't hear her, don't worry, she will tell him again. And I don't know if that's like, because then I started to think about the term groupie in the sense of like her being Frank's ex and like being like, oh yeah, I'm cool being friends. Yeah, we can just be friends. And like actually hoping that he's going to be like, we can get back together.
I've always taken it in like the Richard Ramirez way of like, love lockdown, where it's like every girl always falls for the bad guy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. She seems like well, do you think Columbia was looking for change when she got picked up off the street?
Yeah. I feel like this offered her just a completely different experience that she'd never had before, and she was into it.
Her poor fate.
Yeah.
I love her choreography here too, because she's doing like a shimmy walk. She's doing her tiny little step shimmy walk thing, but it's going so perfectly with the trill that the piano is doing. So it's kind of like she's like dancing on the keys.
Oh, it's so nice.
You know?
Uh,
And she continues.
Now the only thing that gives me hope is my love of a certain dope. Rose tints my world and keeps me safe from my trouble and pain.
Love of a certain dope named who? Frank? Eddie? Heroin?
Yeah, I've never been able to figure out who she's talking about or what she's talking about in this song.
Because she could be talking about, like, I was thinking if she's been hanging out at this castle and she's just waiting for Eddie to come pick her back up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really like the fact of the matter is that Columbia doesn't drive. She doesn't have a car. She doesn't have a way of leaving the castle. And her only hope for leaving the castle was Eddie picking her up and taking her out of there. And he was dinner. So, like, now what hope does she have of ever leaving now?
Yeah, she's stuck.
Because it's also, or she could be like, I'm so hooked on heroin that, like, that's all that's keeping her alive.
The fogginess, the brain fog, is keeping her from her trouble and pain.
And we go from the tilted up camera angle to a close up, and she does her, it's all just so tasteful. Like, we're getting little bits and pieces of like skin getting revealed to us. And she turns around and does her classic Nell nip slip, and then moves across the stage with all of the statues behind her.
She does a cute her little shoulder shimmy that she does in Time Warp. It reprises here.
Even like her nip slip was kind of tastefully foreshadowed too, because she had the peekaboo moment in her rant. So like, for even the most prudish of audience members that were like, oh, nipples, I don't want to see female nipples. Like, you got like one of them in the last scene, and then you got all of the statues nudified.
Yes.
So like, it's funny because that, I always think that they end up more naked than they are. But it's just because the Medusa statues
Are actually
naked. But like, we never actually see Janet totally naked. We never see Brad totally naked. We see Columbia's nipples. We see Frank's nipples. We see Rocky's nipples. We see one of Brad's
We
nipples.
see lots of Rocky's nipples.
None of his belly button, though. Who do you think Columbia thinks they're performing to?
See, this is where I think the puppet master thing comes in. Like, I don't think that they have really full control over what they're doing. I think that this has all been kind of orchestrated.
Yeah. I could also believe Columbia being like, oh, this is a rehearsal. You know, like
She's a showgirl.
We rehearsed Time Warp earlier. That's why she was so disappointed when she fell on the rug. Because
dress
she was
rehearsal, man.
Dang it, we had a dress rehearsal. But Columbia introduces the idea of rose tinting my world, which is the idiomatic expression of seeing the world through rose-colored lenses. And it's usually that someone's just such an optimist. They're naive and they have a tendency of viewing past events in an often unrealistic or an overly positive light. Or it could also mean using drugs to get through a hard time, so you're only seeing the good and refusing or like are straight up unable to see the bad parts of life.
I remember the very first time I had ever heard of like rose-tinted lenses was an episode of, it was either Sabrina the Teenage Witch or it was the Sabrina the Animated Series. It was one of those two. And like one of the witches had created literal rose-tinted glasses. And
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
so Sabrina would wear them and like would only ever be happy, and there was some moral standpoint to the episode. I don't know. But I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then this song came up a couple years later, and I was like, oh, I know what that means.
Yeah. Because it's, I think you have to have like a gradient rose tint in your glasses.
Yes.
Like you should be wearing glasses for general eye protection, and then they should have a pink gradient tint on it. So you're like, I can kind of see like more positive to this situation than negative. But in their cases, they're completely like doped out of their mind.
They are engulfed in rose tint.
Yeah, they've given over to pleasure. Maybe not absolutely yet. We cut back after Columbia finishes her verse to Frank's pink-gloved hand again pulling the de-Medusa switch. Frank is watching this, possibly, like, this might be his dream show, but he's watching it from the wings.
As all great directors do.
I guess. He has to be a part of it. Like, he knows he doesn't want to just be, like, an audience member. So I guess he has to be in the wings. But could he have not de-Medusa'd them all at once?
No, that's not dramatic enough. He needs the drama.
I also, because then he's also, like, rushing to get ready, but, like, there's no audience there. Like, who are they rushing to get, like, curtain on time for if Frank wasn't ready to go?
Unless he can just shapeshift into being ready.
Ooh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Any...
Because he has, like, that black robe on. So, like, he might have the costume on just underneath there.
Ooh, speaking of, that black robe has a gold dragon on the back.
We love dragons.
It's so ridiculous because you only see it for a frame when he's doing that first like light smacking. Mm-hmm. But nobody ever shadowcasts that look either.
I have a robe that I use for Brad because it's a beautiful blue. And it's got like the floral stuff on it.
The butterflies.
Similar to Brad's. It's not perfect, but it works. But it's reversible.
Ooh.
And guess what's on the other side?
Is it black satin?
It's black satin and it has embroidery on it.
Does
I think
it?
it's a dragon, honestly.
No way.
I think it is. So it's like Brad on one side, Frankie on the other.
I mean, that's a really good way to... I mean, that would be con casting.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason you would do this Frank look unless you were...
Oh my god, but how great would
Con-casting.
it be to just be casted as the Frank with cold cream on his face? That's the only part of the show that I'd do.
And the hair. You gotta
hair,
have
yeah.
the wig with the rollers.
The rollers in the bottom, and then the pink satin, or the pink sheer
Yep.
up on the top, the cold cream on the face, the robe, and the pink gloves. Perfect.
Yeah. That's also a... That'd be a great Halloween costume.
No one would get it.
No. But then you'd be like, I'm from Rocky Horror. And they'd be like, what? And
Where?
you'd be like, yeah. Watch the movie. It's there. And they're like, no, it's not. And you're like, yeah, just you wait. And then they have
Frank
to watch
for
the
6
whole
seconds
movie.
of the film.
I think he's also running all of the light and sound on his own because Riff and Magenta are not helping. They did not help him prepare
No, they're
for the full
pissed
show.
at this point. They're like, I hate you.
No, they're doing their own quick
Exactly.
change for yeah. They're like
Exactly.
Riff's
They're
like, I
like-
need to get my hair into a banana shape.
They're like, I'm
This takes at
completely
least
done.
6 minutes.
I'm over Frank's bowl. I will not participate in this floor show. I'm getting ready for my own. Goodbye.
But do you think they would have if Frank had said, like, hey, Riff Magenta, do you want to be part of the
No.
kick line?
No.
Do you think he ever did?
No.
I think Riff would probably have done it if Frank had asked. He would have been like, no, I don't want to do it. And then, like, the Friday before they were planning to do it, he'd be like, hey, is there still, like, a spot that I could... If you haven't filled it already, I'll still do it. And Frank is secretly like, yeah, I had you pegged the whole time. Like, I knew you were going to do this.
Maybe it could have been that little moment of, oh, maybe he does like me.
Exactly. All Frank had to do was ask him to do the floor show the one time.
Just once.
Once. We're back into the scene where Rocky's statue has come to life. The camera tracks as he moves forward across the stage. Do you have any thoughts on why they're getting de-Medusa'd in this order?
I mean, it has to end in Janet.
Yeah.
Because Janet has had the most drastic transformation. So Janet has to be the final one. And I think it's just,
Columbia was an early adopter.
I think it might be like in varying degrees of their awakenings, you know? So like Columbia, yeah, she might have been awakened to a few things, but I think that she has changed the least out of these four characters.
Yeah, because she's still a Frankie fan. She says that it was over, but like
It's not over.
she still dies for him.
It's not over.
It's not over for her. With Rocky's verse, we also get a key change
Ba-na-ba.
to C major, and Rocky begins his choreo, which, you know, seems basic to the human eye. But it's very fitting for his character, because he's, as he's about to say, he's a newborn. And he's never been in heels. So, like, I'm okay with Peter Hinwood not being a trained dancer in heels, but I also believe that Rocky has trouble doing choreography in heels. At this point in the commentary, Patricia talks to Richard about how, like, no matter where she goes, everywhere she goes, people of all different
Walks of life.
every different type of person will approach her and tell her that they've done Rocky Horror.
They've done fishnets.
Yes, they've done fishnets. And it's so sweet because then she turns to Richard and she goes, "What did you do, Richard?" And she's so a part of it. She's like, it's just as much her life story as Tim's and Nell's and Richard's, you know?
Yeah.
Rocky starts, well, he does sing, because it's Trevor White singing.
Yes.
He sings, "I'm just 7 hours old, truly beautiful to behold. And somebody should be told my libido hasn't been controlled." He's in blue lighting with a blue mask.
Mm-hmm.
And only 7 days to be made, but only 7 hours to be destroyed.
Poor baby.
It's nuts because the whole movie takes place over the course of just 7 hours.
A little bit over 7 hours. We start before we get to Rocky.
Yes, you're right, because Rocky is born during the events of the film.
But I would say like 12 hours.
That's such a... Okay, so it's a trope, the extremely short time span, where in films, it's when, like, the events of the film take place over 3 days or less. So for this to be such a very unusually short time span, like, it reinforces the themes of how quickly you can start questioning your sexuality, how quickly you can be de-virginized, how quickly you can be convinced to
Change your life.
change your life, yeah, accept other ideologies, totally, yeah. And this floor show makeup is not a regular feature of a shadow cast.
No, so this makeup is Pierre LaRoche, again, incredible makeup artist responsible for most of the iconic Bowie looks. He did these, what he referred to as Transylvanian masks.
Well, okay, we didn't know that's what they were called forever.
Right.
And then Peter Hinwood posts an Instagram one day calling them Transylvanian masks. Which I'm like so into.
It's such a cool word. Like the cool like
Term for
title.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like, okay, then I started thinking, what if that's what Transylvanians look like on their home planet? Mm-hmm. You know? And then I started thinking, what if they look like Greek statues? And that's why Frank keeps collecting all of these Greek statues around the house to remind him of home.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. I think that's really, like, sweet.
Because if it's a utopia, too, like...
Of course, everyone's perfect looking.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be the fittest of the fit. And maybe that's also why they're having, like, fertility problems. Is that it's, like, their species has become... like so evolved, too evolved even.
But yeah, these makeup looks, we really only get to do them in our cast, at least, during our special shows where we do con casting and we have separate people cast for specifically the floor show, because it does take a little bit of time to get that opaque white on
There's
your face.
no way you're doing that in Krim's monologue.
I've definitely done just the purple border and the purple eyes,
Oh, that's nice.
where it's like you don't have the white on, but it still gives the effect. And you can do that pretty quickly. If you have, they have like these big like crayons basically, like makeup crayons. So if you can find one in a good color,
Like
which
glitter purple, glitter
it's
blue.
really hard to find them in the appropriate colors, but if you can find them, it's really, really convenient to have, where you can just do a quick circle around your face and block out your eyes and slap some red lipstick on.
Because it's such a look. And I don't know. I'm like partial. I get the appeal of doing it for con casting, but it's also really jarring to see different performers. Mm-hmm. So like, I like it when it's like con casting and every single scene has been a different Janet, a different Brad, a different Frank.
Yes.
So that way when you get to floor show, it's like, oh, cool. They're in the full floor show. Head to toe, makeup and all. But yeah, oh my gosh, to have to put that on top of like putting my
Honestly,
all my
I
floor
think
show stuff on.
I think Gottmik says it best. It is so hard to get the white face makeup opaque enough that it looks like white face makeup, and you don't just look like you've slapped some like powder on your face, because it gets weird and like chalky. You kind of have to build up a couple layers of it. Mm-hmm. So it does take a little bit of time to apply it correctly. But if you can do it, good on you, man.
Because it's fun too.
It's very fun.
Then there are people that love the con casting and it's like, what? I've never seen that. I've never seen the foursome in the full face paint. And oh my gosh, that's incredible. Yeah. I was thinking too that Frank and Magenta and Riff Raff are quite pale. And they do kind of do a white face paint.
Yeah.
You know, like that made me think of Greek statues too.
Yeah, totally. We could be onto something.
Well, I'm thinking about it. We'll see. I just, like, if then that's the case, when they fall into the pool after the takeover, I want them to turn back into statues. Because they've been electrified again, and now they're in water again. So, like, return to whatever state Rocky was in originally. I just want the strange science to make sense. I need it to make sense.
Too bad.
Too bad, never gonna happen.
We don't get that.
I was also thinking that Rocky says his libido hasn't been controlled.
Well, yeah. Frank made him as like a sex machine, so of course his libido isn't controlled.
Well, okay, is Rocky then maybe like a weird Transylvanian sex robot that, like, Frank's plan was to get him to stay and then just keep impregnating women as long as he can?
I don't think that that was the intention at all. I think it was that Rocky was made for Frank.
Okay.
And that Frank didn't think of the repercussions of making just a horny sex doll.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because imagine if he did get loose.
Ugh.
Then it would be mayhem. It would be like, because he hasn't been controlled, he would go wild, to say the least. He continues, now the only thing I've come to trust is an orgasmic rush of lust. He takes his boa from his neck and straddles it. He says, rose tints my world, keeps me safe from my trouble and pain.
As he humps from one side to the other side.
We get an ultra close-up of that
Yes.
bouncing package that pans up his body. And he doesn't know how to process his lust or emotions because he's
7 hours old.
7 hours old. Yeah, and I think in his case, like, being exposed to sexual pleasure at such a, quote, young age has negatively affected his ability to function. But, like, what was his purpose? You know, it's like if Siri became sentient. It's like Rocky's like, oh, I don't know what to do. All I want to do is hump. And it's like, great, then you know your purpose. Can you do it, robot? Thank you for your service.
I just feel so bad for him. Like, if you're going to make basically AI and then their only purpose is boning, like, that's just not...
It's weird.
It's sad.
It's weird. I don't know. It's already happening. It's already happening in the world. There's already sex dolls in the world that are, like, very humanoid.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't own one. They may be magical. I can't make a comment on that. He repeated Columbia's rose tint line. What are, like, some of their shared characteristics that you think he's repeating her? Do you think he just, like, heard her lyrics and he was like, yeah, that sounds the same for me. I'm also being overly positive about this situation because
He doesn't know what else to do. He doesn't know how else to process this information.
well, he's doomed to fail if his reason for creation is to just have an uncontrolled libido.
Yeah.
He, like,
I don't think that Frank ever had a plan for Rocky as a person, as a living being, besides bone. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
don't think that he had any livingness planned for him besides, you're going to be my sex slave.
did he think that he was going to stay chained up in the bridal suite forever?
Seriously, like, I don't understand what the thought process was
Or,
behind
like, what's his expiration date? How long is Rocky good for?
until he's not satisfying Frank anymore.
Then does he have, like, an on-off switch?
Oh.
Like, I'm very curious what Frank was planning on... If he was planning on releasing Rocky into the wild. You know? As soon as he's done testing for quality assurance to make sure that the erections last longer than 4 hours, then he sends him out to impregnate a bunch of the female species.
Ugh,
You know?
I don't like it. Makes me sad.
It's icky. We cut back to Frank's pink-gloved hand again, pulling down the D Medusa switch and switching it back up. We cut back to Brad's statue coming to life. He sings,
It's beyond me. Help me, mommy. I'll be good, you'll see. Take this dream away, yay, 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 yay.
This dream and this boa. Take them both away. He's in red lighting with a red Transylvanian mask. And this has just flown completely out of Brad's control. He has no idea
Yeah.
what's happening here anymore. Oh, how do I feel about this? How do I do this? What am I doing here? I don't know.
Just so overwhelmed.
I don't know if if this is like a sunken place situation where he can see his body performing the actions and he's calling from a sunken place of like, help because we're immobilized and totally being puppeteered. Or if he's like just going through the mental processing of what his sexuality might be.
Yeah. I've always thought that it was like Brad's verse specifically. I've always thought that it was like him coming to terms with the fact that he's questioning because he hasn't come to an answer. You know, like Janet has truly found herself by the end of this. Like she's found what she wants. She's found her sexuality. She's found her empowerment. But Brad hasn't. He's opened the door to all of these questions and doesn't have any answers. Anything that he thought he was certain of in the past, it's all being pulled up into question now.
Because he's like literally pleading with his maker to rid him of this like waking nightmare that he's in.
Yeah.
And he's bartering and promising to be better and straighten up or straighten out, maybe.
Yeah.
Do you think this is defining how Brad acts in shock treatment?
I think that if we are to assume that Brad and Janet are the same Brad and Janet in shock treatment, that this is the start of his like mental break.
Poor guy. Because he's teetering on those heels like a newborn calf and throwing his limbs awkwardly in every direction. But, again, the choreo is lining up perfectly with the, like, syncopation of the beats. And even though it looks sloppy, it is not. He does a step ball change. And very wide steps. And, like, a cute little dip. Like, it's Barry in heels. Like, I can appreciate it because he's a Broadway actor. So I know they gave him choreography that he was capable of doing. Yeah.
He has long arms. He has long legs. He is a long man.
But when he says, help me, mommy, he brings his arms in, directioning to him. Like, and he spins. He's doing choreography.
Totally.
But he also might be controlled by external forces. His rhyming scheme in this verse has reduced to variations on the word me and see.
Yeah, he's regressing.
Definitely some of the Freudian concept, infantile regression, the defense mechanism leading to the temporary or long-term reversion of the ego to an earlier state of development rather than handling their childlike impulses in a more adaptive way, a more human way. Or is it not human?
I mean, it's very human.
Yeah.
It's very human. That's the thing. And it's funny to me because it's the same type of rhyming scheme that we saw in Damn It, Janet.
Yeah, very basic.
Whenever Brad feels out of control, he reverts to this like very like simplified state of being.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Because I'm confused too, because he calls out for his mother as a grown adult man to like help him navigate this confusion about his sexuality when like his fiance is standing right there. And he doesn't call out to Janet. Help me, Janet. It would work.
No.
No, it's that he has mommy issues.
Yes.
Totally. And that's why he's not able to communicate to Janet, I guess.
Or anyone.
Because he wants his mother to pull it out of him, I guess.
Or to make his decisions for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Help me, mommy, make this decision. I don't know if I'm straight or if I'm gay.
Yeah.
Yeah. While he's walking across, sauntering, wide sidestepping across stage, we get a change in the camera angle to be behind him, and so we can see the full empty ballroom with that like banquet table with all the weird Transylvanian food still being served. Brad spins and falls to the stage. He says,
"What's this? Let's see."
he sticks his leg up in the air.
I feel sexy. What's come over me? Woo! Here it comes again.
He's so good. Because he is in... They're just also, like, okay, we were talking about this with one of our friends the other day, about how, like, I feel sometimes like I'm overly fangirling and I'm having trouble, like, finding the vocabulary to say that they're perfect and, like, their facial expressions are perfect and iconic. But it's because they are. Like,
There can be no other person to take this role.
there are shadow casts everywhere across the world that strive to perfect a recreation of these performances. And, like, yeah, Barry's faces are perfect in this. He goes from being very concerned, very scared, to when he's, like, stroking his leg, he's, like, enjoying it. He likes to stretch. And I also believe that he is totally questioning the reality around him.
Mm-hmm.
He seems genuinely confused by what is, like, maybe intermittent waves of this drug.
Yeah,
effect.
it like comes in and out.
So what does the sonic transducer do? Like, were they experiencing some kind of drug effect when they were Medusa'd?
Yeah, I want to know if when Frank Medusa'd them, if that's when, like, control was taken. You know what I mean? Like, are they in control of their own bodies still? Are they puppets? Are they being influenced by another, like, outside force?
Mm-hmm.
What long-term effect does Medusa'ing have on them?
Ooh, that's interesting, because what if, like, I don't know, what if they could get re-Medusa'd somewhere else? Like, it's just like they get, I don't know. I want it to make sense, Katie. I keep trying to make it make sense, and it's just... If Brad would just give himself over a little bit to pleasure, he finds and acknowledges that wearing women's lingerie and fishnets and heels make him actually feel sexy.
Yes.
So does that mean that Brad is embracing his sexuality no matter how confused it might make him?
I mean, hopefully. I have a soft spot for Brad, and I always have. And every time I watch the movie, I just, like, I know how it's going to end. I know how it goes. I know every second of this stupid movie. But you always hope for a happier outcome for Brad, because I feel like Janet does get a happy ending, you know?
Yeah, she's not as devastated by the events.
And she finds a bit of herself.
She finds some strength. Yeah.
Yeah, and for Brad, it almost feels like hopelessness. And I every time I watch it, I always just hope for a little bit of something.
You forget how it ends. You're like, please change.
Please
just make
change.
it. Please, can he talk to Janet this week? No?
Maybe.
Never?
Just a little bit.
He's never going to talk to her about any of his no? None of his problems?
Nothing. No,
Okay.
okay.
He doesn't say anything about rose tints. But he didn't have the rose tinted experience in the bedroom either.
But I mean, he also says, "Woo, here it comes again." Is he
Okay.
talking about the rose tint? Does it come in and out for him?
Ooh.
Is that what makes him feel sexy? Is the rose tint?
I mean, a rose tint would make me feel sexy.
Same.
After he's like shaking with this wave coming over him, we cut back to Frank's gloved hand again pulling down the De Medusa switch and back up. We're now back at Janet's statue that's come to life, and she is like a total sex goddess
Yes.
and is 100% making this a burlesque show.
She has like a greenish blue Transylvanian mask on. A lot of people do it as just blue, but it is like a greenish blue.
Sure.
All of them have different colors. Hers is green, but it's kind of more of a teal,
Sure.
if we're being honest.
And then the lighting in the background is like a gradient pink blue.
Mm-hmm.
She seems pretty aware of what's happening. More so than like... Well, they're all kind of aware of what's happening, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know that she would be more aware. I think that she is more accepting of what's happening.
Yeah. And I think that, like, so Janet making this a burlesque moment, I think is what makes the whole floor show feel like a burlesque. And then that, too, makes shadow casting feel like a drag show. And it's so close to performing burlesque, and we have so many performers that also perform burlesque.
Yes.
So it's like, wow, you get your money's worth in this floor show. She rolls and stretches her neck and tosses her hair out. She says, "Oh, I feel released. Bad times deceased." She giggles and bites her fingernail. "My confidence has increased. Reality is here." She is sexy with so many X's.
Yes.
I wrote it in my notes with a bunch of spaced out X's because it's like, she's totally leaning into the fantasy. She's leaning into cover it up, teasing, only showing a little bit of skin. And like, what are the benefits and costs of Janet finding sexual liberation, considering that it's separate from Brad post engagement?
I mean, that opens up like a whole portal of analyzing the patriarchy of the 70s. So I don't know if we want to go down that rabbit hole, but you know what I mean? Like, if Janet decides to be a single woman in the times, it could be seen as like someone who's being a spinster, or she could be seen as, I mean, honestly, even someone who is mentally unstable. They could put her in like a mental asylum. It's like, it sounds so bizarre, but this is literally the times when they would...
Oh, you're not married? You can't take care of yourself.
Yeah, well, not only that, but women who enjoyed sex were seen as hysterical, which is a actual medical diagnosis that they would make, and the cure for being hysterical would be a hysterectomy. If you've ever wondered where that term comes from, this is where it comes from. It cures you from being overly emotional or overly sexual.
And that turned out to be bunk.
Totally.
Completely bunk.
And the patriarchy is still trying to control our bodies. It's fine. Don't worry about
I
it.
thought you were going to say
fine.
also bunk.
I mean, that too. Yes, the patriarchy is very bunk.
I wonder too if, like, okay, we know Brad and Janet are crawling on the planet's face after the castle takes off. let's say best case scenario, and none of the, like, shock treatment doesn't count. Let's say shock treatment is a different reality, different Brad and Janet. Like, what if Brad and Janet do come back together and now Janet is able to, like, communicate her wants and needs and desires to Brad? And, like, there is some benefit to them going through this situation together because
She can help him find himself because she has found herself.
yeah, they can just help each other. This was a strange occurrence to have to do on a Saturday night randomly.
Yeah.
I too don't like to think of what happens to them after the movie because they feel so lost.
Impacted.
But I want to start thinking in the sense of, like, what if they're not awful? What if they end up, like, finding each other among the rubble, embracing each other, saying nothing will ever separate us ever again because this was the bond that we needed to be able to open the floodgates, and maybe now you can talk to Janet, Brad. Maybe.
Just a little bit.
But Janet is she's embodied liberation. She shakes her hair out. She's so sexy. And she's done with being controlled by Brad or society's expectations of her or the patriarchy. I started thinking of, like, second wave feminism because it was only in 1973 that Roe v. Wade determined that women's liberty to choose to have an abortion without excessive government restriction was a, like, human right. And then in 1974, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act became law in the U.S., which prohibited the discrimination in the consumer credit application process on the basis of sex, race, marital status, religion, origin, or age. And then U.S. First Lady Betty Ford in 1974 was pro-choice, which was controversial. In 1975, the Sex Discrimination Act and the Employment Protection Act became laws in the UK, making it illegal to discriminate against women in education, career recruitment, and advertising, as well as making it illegal to fire a woman for being pregnant.
So during this time of filming and of the show being staged, a lot of women's rights were being upheld, and it's a really incredible time for women.
And it's being reflected in Janet's coming to and her awareness of her power. And it also just boggles my mind that, like, this movie's 45 years old, and also not getting fired for being pregnant at your job. Like, that's only a 45-year-old law.
Yep.
I can't believe it.
Isn't it great?
The world, the way it evolves. Janet also brings up reality, which, same, I often bring up the concept of reality. But it's just so, I love that this movie starts to deal with metaphysics because it's so abstract, and that's what allows all of us to have so many interpretations of what happens during this movie, because that's like going over the concepts of being and knowing and cause and identity.
All right.
And space.
Don't worry, we have more time to talk about this. There's more time. We have a couple more episodes.
I don't want it to be over. Because I'm also starting to wonder if this was all a dream. If the whole movie was a dream, and we'll get to it.
Janet continues.
The game has been disbanded. My mind has been expanded. It's a gas that Frankie's landed. His lust is so sincere. And she's using such a much more complex vocabulary. She's so witty and clever with her word usage and rhyming scheme, and it's so different from Damn It, Janet.
Yeah, so we see Brad reverting to that same rhyming scheme that he had before. And then Janet, who has evolved.
She's like a completely different person. Like everything about how she moves and the way she's delivering these lyrics, she's found power and dominance and is able to express herself really thoroughly,
Yes.
as opposed to like bargaining for things to go back to how they were, like Brad. Does Janet know that she's the victim of a plot? The game has been disbanded.
See, I always thought the lyrics were the gang has been disbanded. So, like, me and Brad and
Dr. Scott?
Dr. Scott,
Sure.
we're not in it together anymore.
Sure.
We've been disbanded.
And she's now thinking of bigger and better things.
That's what I always thought that it was. Sure. But if it's a game, then maybe the game of life.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the game has been disbanded. Like, I'm not playing life anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not playing it. I'm living it.
It's bigger than that. Yeah. Yes. Okay, yeah. I like that. Yeah. Because then she talks about Frankie landing and, okay, does it mean laid the seed?
See, I thought it's a gas that Frankie's landed. Wow, I'm so glad that Frank came here because I wouldn't have figured all this out by myself.
Yeah. Showed her what she was missing. Well, how long do you think Frank has been on Earth? What do you think his mission really is? Like, do you think he is the full-time pastor at Denton Episcopalian and has been for the last 10 years?
I think his mission originally was observe and report.
Okay.
I think that is the Transylvanian
way. Voyeurism.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. And like report, like broadcast back home.
Or return the fuck back home.
Or yeah, stop fucking around on Earth and get back home already. Because I'm wondering like how long he's been here.
I feel like, number one, longer than he was supposed to be. Number two, long enough that Riff and Magenta are completely sick of where they are.
Oh, yeah.
Number three, long enough to have put together a gang of people around him that include humans.
Yeah, that's true. And I just think if he were the pastor at Denton Episcopalian, like that's the perfect cover-up to like get to know the town, get them to trust you, buy into the sermons.
Yep.
And then if he starts like subliminally putting Transylvanian messages into his sermons, that's also a way of kind of taking over the planet.
Subverting the species.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Janet shows all of her goods after so tastefully teasing throughout her little... She does like steps and like dips and drops and steps and dips and drops. And when she's doing her mind has been expanded, she pops that booty. And you only get to see the goods for a minute before she covers it back up. But it's like there's so much going on. Like, you want to watch Susan Sarandon do a striptease for 15 minutes, and then you're like, oh yeah, Tim Curry's still in the movie. Oh yeah, wait, we're watching that Rocky Horror movie still. I forgot we weren't just watching a sexy, like, people dancing sexy on stage.
Yeah. Right? You're like, oh yeah, we gotta go back into the plot, question mark?
Because, so Janet blows a kiss to the audience, and now she and Rocky are on stage right, and Brad and Columbia are on stage left. And we get a super long, like, ultra zoom from the back of the ballroom up the aisle as the curtains are rising behind them. thinking about what it looks like. It's so cool.
It's so beautiful.
And the silver curtains are like drapes, so they get like pulled upward, and we're getting like swept up into it. Like we're getting pulled in from the audience, and now we're right in front of Frankenfurter. There's the giant RKO radio picture tower as a stage set that looks like it's currently broadcasting something.
Yeah, you've got the light flashing on the top.
Mm-hmm. And then you've got the beep, 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 which is our bonus episode music.
If you haven't heard it.
But it makes me think that we are getting a broadcasted stream of this floor show. Like, that's getting sent back to the home planet. Frank is standing on, like, a globe, like a black and white globe. He's in this red sequin corset and gold... Gauntlet, thank you. Fishnet armband on the other side. And he just needed it to match them, but he still needed to have, like, the flashiest costume.
He also has a feather on his head.
And stoles. He has mink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a bunch of mink carcasses sewn together. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's great. We love it.
Like, he doesn't know that isn't how you wear it. Right? Like, I don't own furs, so I don't really have anywhere to talk on this subject.
Yeah, I don't know what they normally look like, but I don't
do they
feel
normally
like...
have the faces attached?
And the feet?
And the feet.
Do they? Somebody email us.
Like, so many feet. Like, he's pulling them off of his shoulder, and it's like foot.
Yeah, someone email us and tell us if they normally have faces and feet, please.
Richard originally wanted the 20th Century Fox logo.
Little too on the nose? Just a little? You think?
I'm glad that you said it, because I was like, oh, I love it. It should have been.
I feel like it's too much.
But imagine sitting there in 75 and then you're like, wait a second, is the movie starting over? I'm confused. Why are we getting the logo again? What is the, like...
That is pretty funny.
And then you'd be like, why is Frank standing in front of it? And then you'd have that mental mind fuck of like, wait a second, is this the movie that I'm watching in the movie that I'm watching? It's so interesting. And I think we are getting a live broadcast of this floor show. Frank is in front of the broadcast tower, and if we were shadow casting this scene, Frank would be center stage, just waiting, standing center stage, all eyes are on you. Like, this is Frank's shining scene. Like, Sweet Transvestite's fun because he's wandering around so much and you get so much Tim Curry energy, but this is like the ballad that standing there and just serving face. It's great.
As Janet, do you wait on the side or do you go off stage?
I think I go off stage.
We gotta rest our feet sometimes, guys.
I think I go off stage because, like, all eyes are on Frank anyway, and I don't want to distract.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is, like, the pivotal moment of the movie. This is arguably the most important part of the movie, because this is where we're getting, like, the key themes and the key character motivations, and maybe even Richard O'Brien's ultimate sentiment is in this segment. So, like, I don't want to distract. I want people to be... And if they're not watching the Shadowcast, this is one of those scenes where, like, if you're just watching the movie, it's so good. You want to watch Tim.
Tim is absolutely gorgeous in this.
Ugh. And so he sings, "Whatever happened to Fay Wray? That delicate, satin-draped frame. And even though we've done that crazy zoom, we can still see Tim's expressions so clearly before we like next cut to close up. An incredible actor. He's so good. Who is Fay Wray?
I think we talked a little bit about her in our very, very first episode, but I will give you a little refresher. Fay Wray is one of the original Scream Queens. She holds that crown. She was born in 1907 in, I want to say Ontario. Definitely in Canada.
Yeah, she's like very, very Canadian. But she's so famous.
She's best known for starring as Anne Darrow in King Kong, and actually appeared in her first film at the age of 16 and landed her first major role 2 years later in The Coast Patrol. She was selected, I think, that same year by the Western Association of Motion Picture Advertisers, that's a mouthful, as a baby star, or a woman they believe to be on the threshold of movie stardom.
A title you would never be able to use in 2021.
Baby star. I hate it. But they would
women
pick
being
about
called babies.
15 to 20 women every year that they were like, we think that these are going to be very famous people within the next 5 years.
How nuts that they... I mean, I guess they do that still. It's called the Academy Awards, I guess.
She then signed a contract with Paramount Pictures and helped them transition from silent films to talkies.
Yes.
She starred in Dr. X, Mystery of the Wax Museum, The Most Dangerous Game, and King Kong, all within the span of a year and a half.
That's crazy. That's such a career. Oh, busy year. And Frank wanted to be her.
Yes.
In the movies. Like, he found his identity watching her. And he wanted her wardrobe.
Hell yeah. I think we all want her wardrobe.
But as a young boy, recognizing that and seeing that it isn't a man that you're identifying with on screen, being like, no, I want to wear a dress. I want to... Like, the societal expectation of men wearing dresses even now. Like, straight guys can't wear dresses. The stigma attached to that is like, what? You can't wear a dress? Is that like a cultural thing for you? Like, men still, or like, are you a drag queen?
I hate that though.
Yes.
Clothes are clothes.
Clothes are clothes.
Wear what makes you feel comfortable.
Literally. And skirts are so comfy.
Oh my gosh.
Just get a little bit of
A breeze.
movement. Yeah, a breeze.
So nice.
On a hot summer day.
Frank continues.
As it clung to her thigh, how I started to cry. For I wanted to be dressed just the same.
This line breaks my heart a little bit every time I hear it.
Yeah, because we're ultra close up, so we're getting, like, Frank has not been more honest with us in the whole movie, because he's looking us dead in the face and he's telling us his, like, key character motivation.
Well, and he has this, like, smile, but his eyes are
sad,
glassy, like almost as if he's holding back tears. So it's like you really feel exactly what he's talking about.
And I'm wondering if this was also a key author intention.
Yeah.
That I don't know if Richard intended to create a universe, a community, and a lasting legacy that encourages men to indulge in their cross-dressing curiosities, or at least expose people and maybe normalize men embracing their femininity, or clothing not matter.
Yeah.
He kicks a lever that's the same style of lever that's on the control panel in the lab, and a section of the stage in front of Frank rises up and goes outward toward the camera.
Yeah.
And, like, we all know there's a pool because we've seen the movie before, but, like, is it a cat? Like, I'm thinking, is Frank like catwalking now toward me across all this all this fog? Like, we don't see there's a pool yet.
Yeah, the pool hasn't been revealed, so it's like, is this just like a dramatic, like, little extra section that he can walk forward onto?
Yeah, and it's so, so 10 out of 10.
Well,
dramatic.
it also almost looks like it could be a set of stairs. So like, it's like, what are you revealing to me?
Yeah, what is that? What is down there? What are you going toward? And it's so campy. It's so 70s for that, like, to consider that a diving board comes out of the side of the pool.
Perfect. Flawless. Need one myself.
It's retractable. And Frank starts just like sauntering down the diving board. He says, "Give yourself over to absolute pleasure. Swim the warm waters of sins of the flesh."
We love sins of the flesh.
Hell yeah. And he's straight up staring us down, seducing us, not breaking eye contact. And this is Frank's main motivation, like, as, like, his mission motivation. Like, he wants to get everybody on the planet Earth to totally imbibe, and he doesn't know the repercussions because he doesn't know the repercussions of his own actions. Like, he doesn't see, he has no remorse for anything that he's done throughout this movie. So he has no idea what suggesting these themes to humans, how reckless it could be.
Well, and speaking to your idea that he possibly is the full-time pastor at Denton Episcopalian, sins of the flesh is like a very commonly used term in religion, and it's referring to like it's like a metaphor to describe sinful tendencies.
Sure.
Usually like lust or sexuality, a lot of times like a kinship bond or a familial bond, and it's usually used in a very like negative connotation of like the flesh. Mm-hmm. The flesh is never a good thing in the Bible.
Yeah, to indulge in.
No, just in general, anytime they refer to the flesh, it's always a bad thing. You can't look at the flesh, it'll tempt you too much.
Yeah, even, like, I started thinking about voyeurism and how, like, in the Bible, that's a no-no, too. That, like, looking at other women with lustful thoughts is a sin in and of itself. So, like, Frank is just saying, like, if looking and touching are just as bad, what's
not?
the harm?
Just do it.
In doing it. If it's gonna, like, if either way. He continues, erotic nightmares beyond any measure, and sensual daydreams to treasure forever. Just imagine a world of sexual fantasy. Why not just let yourself live a little, huh? That's what Frank's saying.
Wouldst thou like to live deliciously?
And he's not wrong, because, like, all of the bedroom scenes and, like, really any sexy moment of this movie, and even, like, the not sexy moments, they're, like, frames and images from this film that will be burned onto your brain forever. Like, not to mention all of the enjoyment we get out of watching Rocky Horror.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Any of the fetishy sci-fi side kinks that any one of the characters explore, like, it's so, like, Frank is like, hey, there's lots of opportunities out there.
Lots of options.
Can't you just see it? He says, oh, and takes the stole off of his shoulders. He stretches, and we switch camera angles now to, like, a God's eye view from the top of the theater. Smoke is surrounding Frank standing on the diving board. He throws the boa off and jumps into the smoke and just disappears. And we're like, did he jump into the bottom of the... Is there a hole in the ground?
Where did he go? Is this the end of the movie?
And then a grand harp starts to string and build, and it billows away all of that smoke. And we get what Lou Adler calls the $1 million shot of this movie, of Frank lying in the life raft ring with the creation of Adam on the pool floor below him. It's so perfectly framed. He's smack in the middle of it. And because the frame is so, like, I don't want to say it's empty because there's a lot to look at, but, like, there isn't a lot of action happening right now, so it really makes you pay attention to the sentiment that Frank is about to sing. But before that, just, why is there a pool now?
Yeah, where did this
pool come from?
Why? Hello?
It has no business being there.
All this and a floor show and a pool?
Yeah, if you guys got hot, we're going to take a dip a little later.
Cool it down.
The portrait on the pool floor is the creation of Adam.
Yeah, it's on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. So it's done by Michelangelo, not the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Sorry, guys. So basically, the Pope was like, hey, I want you to do all this work for me. I want you to decorate the Pope's tomb, which, like, took, I don't know, like 40 years or something for him to do. Something insane. But he also was contracted to do the Sistine Chapel's ceiling, the fresco. And it's not just the creation of Adam, even though that's kind of the most famous of the pieces. It's 500 square meters of fresco. That's a huge,
I can't even imagine how big that is.
amount of space. It took 4 years to do. And it's like over 300 figures.
Like cherubs and angels and
People and like 300 figures. In the center grouping, which is the one that the creation of Adam is in, that's the book of Genesis that's being explored there. So there's like God's creation of earth, God's creation of humankind, and then their fall from grace, and then the state of humanity as represented by Noah and his family. So it's all the good stuff is in that section. You see God and Adam reaching for each other, but not quite touching.
they just the tips.
No, they're not touching at all. They're like pointing at each other, basically, because their hands are like in a relaxed state, except for just their pointer fingers. And there's just a little teensy bit of a gap because
We're always reaching for it.
yes, Michelangelo wanted to make sure that people understood that we may be created in God's image, but we are not on the same level as God. It's not like a portrait where two men are shaking hands so you know that they're on the same level. It's that we're always striving for and reaching for God.
Sure.
So it's kind of very interesting that in between their hands, who's floating there connecting the two of them?
Frankenfurter. Yes. And it's also almost subverting the meaning that he put it on the floor of his pool. And he's been doing a lot of ungodly acts, and not just of the sexual nature. Like, he's been messing around with the creation of life that is very alien. But I think Frank just sees it as another piece of art to collect.
Yes.
we've seen him collect so many other pieces of art that it's like,
He doesn't understand the sentiment behind this piece, I don't think.
and he's not even, it's just, it's only for this shot. You know? Like, if you're swimming in the pool, if you're floating in the pool, you're looking up at your ceiling. You're not going to look down at the gorgeous painted mural on the floor of your pool. It's just so,
Bizarre.
yeah, valueless. Because you can only see it if you're standing on the roof and looking down at it. The pool is gold tiled with 3 ladders on the bottom of it for the gang to use to get out of the pool for the kick line. And Frank is looking straight at the camera. He says, "Don't dream it, be it. Don't dream it, be it." And the camera drops down on Frank in the pool. It's just so... The pacing changes at this moment.
It becomes very dreamlike.
Very dreamlike, yes. And everything leading up to this moment has been so chaotic and frenzied. And now we're floating in a pool and we're relaxed. And we're gonna just talk about the meaning of life. Don't dream it, be it, okay? This whole story is kind of an Aesop, because while some things aren't for everybody, given the duality of Brad's poor experience compared to Janet's like coming into power, the film offers no real judgment. It rather is advocating for exploration regardless of its outcome.
Yes.
I think it's an important sentiment. This is the statement that like people have like tattoos of and artwork of, and the sentence lives separately from the movie.
Yes.
Don't dream it, be it. It's so
such an inspiration.
Yeah, it's so touching on a deep level, because without having to name your dreams, without having to talk to somebody about what you secretly want and your secret desires, like, you know what they are. You know your dreams. So just go do it. You know what you need to do to accomplish your dreams, so you should just pursue it then.
As Frank is repeating his mantra, it's almost as if the rest of the crew becomes even more entranced.
Like hypnotized.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Columbia and Brad turn around to face the camera and start singing with him. Don't dream it. And then Janet and Rocky start walking towards the pool. Be it.
And they're like, so Frank is like floating totally unaware in that SS Titanic life ring as a sinking ship about to go down, I think. And yeah, he like motions all of them to come in. They all jump into the pool from one end or the other. And they are acting like they're brainwashed, for sure. But I also think they could just be like high out of their minds.
They could be.
Could they be? Because like heroin is the more heavily referenced drug throughout the film. Is it heroin? Are they high on heroin?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Because heroin kind of creates this like false sense of like joy, and it, causes you to release, well, it causes your body and your brain to release dopamine, and like kind of gives you that rush of like kind of blind joy.
Okay.
It can cause you to like flush, like your face to become like flushed, and it can cause like dry mouth and like heavy feeling in the extremities, which we're kind of seeing as they're
Moving
sauntering towards the pool, but they seem very heavy as they're doing it.
Yeah. And they're also, I love that you said that there's like a flushing of the skin, because that's a rose tint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They continue to sing Don't Dream It, Be It. And Frank, Columbia, Brad, Janet, and Rocky entangle with their arms around all each other. There's just general kissing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Total orgy scene. Like, 16-year-old me was like, oh yeah, I don't think this is interesting. When I'm like secretly waiting for Janet and Columbia to kiss the whole time. We have Rocky swimming under the water with just legs going everywhere.
Yes.
Brad and Columbia licking Frank's pearls. Janet goes, it almost looks like she's going in to kiss Brad, but he's too busy with the pearls, so she then goes for Columbia. And there was like definitely some sexual tension between Columbia and Janet. Because she said slowly, that's too nice a job to rush.
I mean, Janet is mwah,
A babe.
flawless.
Oh, yeah. They're both babes.
Yes.
That's why, like, I think they were both looking at each other like,
All right.
I would. Especially after she watches Janet hook up with Rocky.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I think so. Like, they were definitely curious. And this whole scene is just normalizing experimentation without expectation. They are literally trying out the waters, dipping their toes in, or diving straight up into the deep end.
All right.
I had to go for it. They continue to say, don't dream it, be it. And we cut back to Dr. Scott, who is fully dressed. And it's just so comical because the glasses are like sitting on his stone face. He's just... They forgot about him. Frank totally forgot about him. Wasn't planning on going back to him. I don't know what he was planning on doing with him at all, honestly. Like, I don't know if he thought that I'm gonna abduct him. Like, he's stuck now.
I don't know. He got rid of the rival scientist.
Yeah, exactly. You want to see my home planet so bad? Great. First class trip. Medusa'd.
The Medusa switch falls on its own.
Just falls. What is this faulty science? Why? What is the security of this switch that
made
just
this?
Defaults like that? And Dr. Scott comes to life. It's almost like he's continuing the monologue that he got cut off on in the lab of like, they have the audio molecular physio vibrative device. He says,
We've got to get out of this trap.
And we cut to underwater Brad smiling and swimming.
Before this decadence saps our will.
Like, I think Frank is dramatic, but Dr. Scott is so dramatic.
Very dramatic.
Like, he's like, oh, this is bad, guys. This is worse than I could have ever imagined.
This is really bad.
And
it's really bad.
We're not going to be able to control ourselves pretty soon. Like, we're going to be completely brainwashed. Does he think that's what happened to Columbia?
I don't know. I have no idea what Dr. Scott thinks. I think he's a crazy old man.
Because he's also, I think he's pretending he's not interested in the fun orgy happening in the pool.
Yeah.
He's like, what? We gotta get out of here. If I can't be a part of that, we gotta get out of here. He says,
I've gotta be strong and try to hang on.
As he flubbers his like upper lip and his mustache moves. It's like 6 inches around his face. It just goes all over the place. Is he starting to feel the effects of whether it's heroin or being de-Medusa'd?
Maybe.
He's also battling with those inner morals of his.
Oh, yeah.
That are dictated by toxic masculinity. Janet is not the only character who gets challenged with re-examining how she fits into society. I think they're all coming to terms with it.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I feel like at least every one of the human characters is re-examining what it means to be a human.
Oh my gosh. The poor things. They're going to be thinking about it for a long time. We cut back to the pool underwater where everyone's just like swimming over each other and licking each other. And then a heel is just floating there. Dr. Scott says,
Or else my mind may well snap.
I don't know why he thinks homosexual tendencies are psychotic.
Well, if we're going with the idea that he is a Nazi doctor.
Yeah.
The Nazis were, let's just say, not
Evil.
very nice.
They were evil to homosexuals.
To homosexuals.
Evil.
Yes, absolutely, completely evil. Horrible, horrible, horrible people. They took gay men and, to a lesser extent, gay women, and not only put them in concentration camps, but just kind of sent them all to trial. And some of them went to prison, some of them went to concentration camps, some of them were just executed on the spot. Instead of wearing the Star of David on their clothing, they would wear a pink triangle to signify that they were gay. They burned books about homosexuality and just human sexuality in general. Like, not even just gay stuff, but like all of it. They were like, it talks about sex, burn it.
We can't have liberation.
Yeah, they compiled lists of gay clubs and known homosexuals, and they would go after them. And I don't want you to think that this is just like a couple people. This is like 100,000 men that were arrested. And they would use them as target practice on shooting ranges. They were used as test subjects for Nazi doctors to find a cure for homosexuality. These were not people who were just,
Like, they were target practice. That's insane.
They would literally aim for the pink triangles on their shirts.
Oh my gosh.
Just absolutely horrible. And
crimes against humanity.
Total crimes against humanity. If you want to know more, it gets worse. I'm not going to say it on here because this is not a true crime podcast, and it's really gross. But if you want to learn more, it's all over the internet.
It's important history that we shouldn't forget because it makes us uncomfortable.
Yes.
Oh gosh. And Dr. Scott, if he is a former Nazi doctor, it would explain his entire
feeling towards all of this.
Yeah. I don't like thinking that he's evil, but I mean, that's how the character is being written. Okay? That's all I'm going to say.
That's all I'm going to say.
That's all I'm going to say. He might be evil. He is getting like loopier and loopier and like slowly coming to terms with the situation. He says,
"Und my life will be lived."
And he pulls aside the blanket and has a fish netted leg.
For the thrill. And is like caressing his leg very sensually.
Yeah. Well, it's like he's shocked. He's shocked, and I don't know if it's because he can't move his legs and now he can move his legs, which is, I think, how I've always interpreted it. Was he gets de-Medusa'd, the strange magic. He no longer needs to be wheelchair bound.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want to be sensitive about this because I don't want to be offensive. But he doesn't get out of his wheelchair after floor show. Like, he stays in his wheelchair for the rest of the takeover, and then he still leaves. in the wheelchair? Mm-hmm. So, like, I just don't know to what extent he's, like, actually able to walk, because I do think he is an homage character to Doctor Strangelove. 1,000,000,000%. Because, okay, you need to watch Doctor Strangelove if you haven't, because it's so good. Oh my gosh, Slim Pickens is fucking so funny. And Peter Sellers is playing 3 different characters, and one of them is an ex-Nazi scientist who is now working in, like, you know, the secret sanctum military base. And he is also wheelchair bound, and he convinces the entire group of men to he convinces the president of the United States into selective breeding, which is like a Nazi, like, selection of the fittest ideology belief.
Really gross.
Yeah. But he talks the group of men into it because he's like the trope of a genius cripple. Like, he's the smartest in the room and they all believe him. And then as soon as he convinces everybody to do this, surprise, he actually can walk. Peter Sellers gets out of the wheelchair and says, "Mein Führer, I can walk." And that's how, well, it's a movie that came out in the 60s, so if I just spoiled the ending for you, I'm sorry. But he walks. And I think Dr. Scott can walk. Do you think Dr. Scott can walk?
If we're going off of the statements, then yes.
Because I think he participates in the floor show. I don't know.
But then there's also, like, not a limit on disability.
Yeah.
You know, like, maybe he can't walk for long periods of time. Maybe he feels more comfortable in his wheelchair because it is painful for him to walk. You know?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can't judge.
No. I do want to know why he would be working on an audio vibratory device, if that's like alien technology that we should be concerned of them having. Like, this is crazy technology. I can't believe, whoa. And, like, it's kind of suspicious that he is aware of this technology. Like, is he aware of something the military is working on?
He knows that live television is taking over the world.
Mm-hmm. And that, along with that, advertisements. After Dr. Scott has realized he's in fishnets,
Or revealed that he is in fishnets.
because he may have been wearing them the whole time. Totally could have if they didn't put the fishnets on under the blanket.
Just saying.
We cut back to Columbia and Brad in the pool, making out. They raise up their heads, and Brad, he's like practically drowning. He's gasping for air, and she just keeps pushing him back under. But he says,
"It's beyond me. Help me, mommy."
Total regression.
Yes.
Like, he's not even coming up with new thoughts anymore. He's just repeating himself. Janet's not repeating herself.
No.
Rocky doesn't talk. So, and I think this whole scene, like, there's so much sexual tension between the characters, because they've all been running around in their underwear all night and, like, seeing each other in their
various states of nudity.
Yep. And it's also, like, a horny high schooler's dream to have this, like, rigged truth or dare or spin the bottle or, like, 7 minutes in heaven. Like, they just want to make out with each other and see what they like.
Totally.
I don't know if Brad's also saying it's beyond me. Like, how am I making out with Columbia right now? Like, they were virgins at the start of this movie. I don't think Brad has kissed any other girl other than Janet.
I mean, maybe.
And now Columbia. Or, well, Frank, then Columbia. She's technically his third kiss.
Columbia pulls Brad back down into the pool and kisses him again. The camera pans over to a thrilled Janet.
And Frank goes to kiss her shoulder, but it's also like he gets a big gulp of pool water at the same time. Or he really hates the way that her skin tastes, and he just... Janet says, God bless Lily St. Cyr, who was a model, actress, burlesque artist, and sex worker, active from 1937 to 1965. She was a ballerina in her youth, but then became like a chorus girl in Hollywood.
Yes.
And started stripping at the Music Box, which is now known as the Fonda Theater in Hollywood. She's considered one of the most well-known burlesque artists of all time.
Yes.
Alongside Gypsy Rose Lee and Ann Corio.
I'm sure that a lot of you have heard the name Gypsy Rose Lee. But Lily St. Cyr may not have, her name may not have survived for as long as Gypsy Rose Lee's has. But Lily St. Cyr was the one who came up with, like, the bathtub routine, where she undresses from one thing and gets into the bubbly bathtub and then gets out and she's in whatever. That was Lily St. Cyr's act.
Oh.
You know who she is.
Yeah, because she was often billed as the anatomic bomb.
Yes. Which, like, wow, what a name.
Yes. And she was actually arrested and taken to court by a customer who'd considered her act lewd and lascivious.
She beat the charges, by the way.
Good.
Released.
Good. She better. Strong woman back in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
And 60s.
She had some minor roles in actually a lot of films, but her acting career never quite took off. And she passed away in Los Angeles in 1999. Never had any kids, but was married 6 different times.
Good for her.
Mm-hmm.
Good
Yeah.
for her.
She, knew what she liked, so when she was ready to move on, she was. She once told a reporter that if she'd ever wanted any children, she would have adopted. And what is this about Elvira?
Yes. So, fun fact, Cassandra Peterson, aka the Mistress of Darkness herself, Elvira, achieved her trademark cleavage by wearing a Lily St. Cyr deep plunge bra.
Hey,
Perfect.
famous cleavage.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. And I think Janet's got to be referencing her because she embraced her sexuality, was widely renowned as an amazing burlesque artist, and Janet's just like coming to terms with the power of her sexuality and tapping into it.
Mm-hmm.
I also love that she's like, thank God women started doing this.
Right?
For even if not for her own sake of performing burlesque, for maybe her to enjoy other women doing burlesque.
Yes.
Because why does Janet know Lily St. Cyr? Does that mean that she knew of her before the events? Like, is this a memory that's coming out of the Medusa state? Or, because, like, that's not like Frank programmed that memory into her.
Right? Like, what, Janet? Do you have something to tell us?
Does she secretly want to, have all of these, all this time, has she been wanting to be a burlesque dancer?
Ugh. Let's hope.
I mean, she gets what she wants. After we get all of these folks just having fun in a pool, we cut back to Dr. Scott caressing his fish-netted leg, astounded.
Again, he's still rubbing that leg.
He's just like, he can't believe it. He can't believe his eyes. And with that ends our segment.
That felt like the fastest 7 minutes.
It's it's so fun. I love performing floor show. I think it's the moment that nobody wants to be accidentally like getting their water refilled.
Seriously.
Or anything. Like,
if
this
you
is
miss out, you have royally screwed up.
Yeah, because it goes so quick too. As soon as we started talking about it, already we're moving on to wild and untamed thing.
Wow.
But we'll get to that next time.
Yeah.
Until then, you can find us on Instagram at Time Warp Radio.
You can send us an email and let us know your deepest, darkest secrets at timewarpradiopod@gmail.com.
Our blog is timewarpradio.blogspot.com.
We are on Twitter. We are Time Warp Rad Pod.
Rad Pod. Well, we're so excited to keep talking about Floor Show. I'm so happy it's not just one segment. I'm glad that we get to
Seriously.
like live in the corsets and fishnets for a couple episodes. So don't forget, on Wednesdays we watch Rocky.
Bye.
Bye.
Please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps us out, and we appreciate all your feedback. We'll see you next time.